it's highly important that we keep the few laws that we do have that protect financial whistleblowers in place. So I appreciate being invited to speak today, and I'm excited to hear Eugene Ross's story. He was working at Bear Stearns and discovered fraud at the Amaretta Investment Advisors Group and testified, helped get people convicted, and he too is unable to work in his chosen field. And once again, I'm hoping that we will see Dodd-Frank work in such a way that you can remain anonymous. So whistleblowing helps keep a capitalist system vibrant and healthy. It's a check and balance that needs protections. And I hope we all continue the fight. And I appreciate hearing from, being able to speak today. And I appreciate hearing from Eugene Ross next about his financial fraud reporting. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Eugene Ross. I'm not larger than life, and I have half the energy that Stephen Cohen has. I am the former Bear Stearns employee who uncovered the Amarindo investment advisor fraud by its principals, Alberto Villar and Gary Tanaka, in September of 2004. Villar and Tanaka were convicted in November of 2008 of a multi-million-dollar scheme to defraud investors. I was a witness for the Department of Justice and testified at the trial. I wrote an internal memo describing the fraud, and it was that memo that made me a whistleblower. Villar and Tanaka were served lengthy prison sentences, and the Amarindo victims got their money back. Those are the facts. Another fact is, without me, the Amarindo investors don't get their money back. A whistleblower stopped Amarindo. And without the whistleblower, the regulators would have done nothing. This is my first top-line message to you today. Every fraud victim's best hope is a whistleblower. My second top-line message to you today is we need strong whistleblowers and we need strong laws if we seriously want to address securities fraud. As we all know, securities fraud was a key reason for the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009. Congress addressed this with the Dodd-Frank Act. The act provides 10 to 30% rewards to whistleblowers, permits anonymous filings, and protections against whistleblowers. Dodd-Frank has since been weakened by a bad Supreme Court ruling and could be weakened further if caps are placed on rewards as some have proposed. Let me tell you why keeping strong whistleblowers laws are not just an abstract concern for me. I continue to need strong whistleblower laws because I am a victim of retaliation by former employer Bear Stearns and of neglect by the regulators and the industry, FINRA, which should have protected me. Here are those facts. I told Bear Stearns in September 2004 about the Amarindo fraud, and they failed to report that fraud to any regulatory agency, as they were required to do. I couldn't go directly to any regulator as a condition of my employment. 9 months later, the Department of Justice called Bear Stearns saying they wanted to speak to me about the Amarindo fraud. Bear Stearns would not permit me to speak to the Department of Justice until they met with me. At that point, I was required to sit through a 6-hour interview with Mr. Maloney, who was the Bear Stearns attorney, who instructed me in that meeting to deny to the Department of Justice that I had ever put anything in writing. It seems that my memo was problematic for Bear Stearns, and Bear Stearns was trying to avoid lawsuits. As he explained to me, Bear Stearns had deep pockets. Mr. Maloney also cautioned me about bringing my own attorney to the interview with the Department of Justice, suggesting I would look guilty. Mr. Maloney assured me if anything went wrong, and what could go wrong with lying to the Department of Justice, he would be there to protect me. Mr. Maloney also chose that time to chastise me as a junior G-man for investigating the Amarindo fraud. During almost 9 months, I was persistent in my attempt to get Bear Stearns to respond to my client's demands to return her money. They refused. Also during those 9 months, after reporting the fraud, Bear Stearns decided to cut my pay by 30%, withheld commissions I earned, took away from my support, and prevented me from opening new accounts. When I would work from home, someone would shut off my computer. And I was working from home when my sister was undergoing chemotherapy treatments. In September of 2005, I was constructively discharged. At that point, Bear Stearns decided to ship me a box of broken glass as an attempt to intimidate and humiliate me. Let me share with you my experiences with FINRA, the organization and regulators designed to protect me. As a reminder, all security industry professionals must sign mandatory arbitration agreements as a condition of employment, okay? And FINRA carries out those arbitrations. Because I was prohibited from filing a lawsuit in April 2006, I filed a $1 million arbitration complaint against Bear Stearns for retaliation and constructive discharge. My arbitration was then placed on hold at the request of the Department of Justice until the Amarindo criminal trial could proceed. My arbitration hearing began on September 22nd, 2009, almost 5 years after I uncovered the Amarindo fraud. Daniel Taub, who was the head of regulatory matters at Bear Stearns, testified under oath he didn't know if he had an obligation to turn the fraudsters in. My manager, Jim Hubbard, testified he reduced my payout to help me. So my question to him was, how did that help me? And he said he could have reduced it more. In the end, the FINRA arbitrators rejected my claim and ordered me to pay Bear Stearns $606,000, which was the balance of my employment contract. FINRA said they would help me with a payment plan, but they mailed that package to a home I sold in 2006 to pay my legal bills. Gets better. The worst part of the story happened in December 2009. FINRA suspended my license in all capacities, which meant I couldn't get a job in a brokerage firm in the mailroom. Put that in perspective, at the time, Bernie Madoff's licenses weren't suspended in all capacities. In February 2010, with the help of Congressman Chris Smith, Senator Chuck Grassley, whistleblower attorney David Colapinto, and Frank Medina, House Financial Services staff, FINRA was persuaded to correct their error. I refer to that letter as my license, returning my license as my FINRA get out of jail free letter. They say you can find humor in any story, as long as it's happening to someone else. In order to put this matter behind me and to prevent Bear Stearns from getting a $600,000 judgment against me, I filed for personal bankruptcy in March of 2010. So this is my third top-line message to you today. Our current regulatory system is flawed. Company compliance programs, mandatory arbitration, and industry self-regulation are the wrong way to tackle security fraud. If we really want to stop securities industry from ripping people off, we need whistleblowers, we need independent regulators, and we need enforcing strong whistleblower laws. In closing, I want to say thank you to all the whistleblowers, my people, and the public servants who protect and enforce our whistleblower laws. Thank you.